I've heard different things about stages in a woman's life.
Mm.
And I feel like as we're getting older, we get to kind of look back
Yeah.
and see the missed opportunities for wisdom, um, because there weren't a lot of people talking about the different stages of a woman's life. And I think menopause being the one right now that's up. I just had my 60th birthday. So
Congratulations.
thank you. And I know you talk about these three pivots of power,
Mm.
and I would love to know more about that.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I want to share that I just had my 53rd birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm still in that threshold, entering into the third space, but I want to acknowledge that I heard the teaching from my teacher, Douglas Brooks, and it's a Shakta teaching from South India. And when I heard the teaching, I was so stopped in my tracks by it because of its beauty and eloquence, and also the way it invites us to think of the stages of a woman's life, the transition from girl to woman and then through womanhood as ceremony, as ritual space. And I certainly never heard anything like that coming up in the 1980s in Catholic Ireland, where we used euphemisms to talk about our bodily functions, even amongst ourselves and with our friends.
Mm.
So the first phase or pivot is the Kanyaka or Kumari. It's when a girl, the blood is incipient, and she's, I suppose now you might say a tween. I think that might be right, but right at that threshold, like a flower about to bloom. And there's a beauty and there's the promise of fertility and womanhood. And there's something very sacred and very precious about it. The promise of what's to come. And this struck my heart so deeply because I thought about myself, waiting for my period to come, and all your friends have got, and people are giving each other side eye. Has your roses come? That kind of thing, but never feeling that we were stepping across a threshold into a ritual time and a time to celebrate, and that this beautiful thing was about to happen in our bodies and in our beings, and that this thing meant that we were auspicious and a gift. And I just think it's such a beautiful way to look at women's embodiment.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've been thinking about, of course, and writing about as well. And we talked before we started the recording about menopause being this initiation that nobody told you about.
Yeah,
And it's the one that I feel like um, is very hard to ignore, but it's not something, it's like a secret. Like my mother never mentioned anything about menopause.
right.
So take us through the two other pivots, and then I'd love to talk about how we can reframe um, these thresholds in our lives.
Got it. Well, the next one is the Suvasini, which is this means sweetly auspicious, which I
Mm,
mean, come on,
I
you just
love
think
that.
of beautiful flowers. Or Sumangali, which means well dwelling or well dressed. And the woman who's Sumangali has the bracelets, the bindi, all that beautiful shri that the Indian women wear. And it's an embodiment and an announcement of being auspicious, of being having the capacity to give life, to
Mm.
generate, and to hold that threshold. And again, I just wish for myself and for my friends that, and all the women I love, that we thought about ourselves like that we'd understood how precious we were,
Yeah.
the gift we were, and that the adornment comes from the outside. Sorry, comes from the inside to the outside. I gestured at it but said the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That our bodies themselves, that our yonis, the life giving womb and our life giving physiology and biology is itself the Shri. I mean, I heard this teaching at 47 and I was just like, boom, I never knew. And I think there's something so powerful in that, and something so poignant that I think for probably a lot of women of our generation and older, I really don't know about younger women now, how that would land for them.
Mm.
And then the next stage is the Jeshta, the victorious one. And she's the one whose the blood is being absorbed. And in the absorption of the blood is circulated. There isn't well, I should say this a little bit more maybe about the Sumangali phase. As we know, the cycles of menstruation or the cycles of conception and then release if there's no conception. So it's a woman dies to herself for 3 days every month, maybe a little longer, but the symbology is 3 days, and that the shedding is a ritual release and a ritual death, which makes way for renewal and the reconstitution of the yoni as a potential home for life, and the cyclical nature of our embodiment and the cyclical nature of women's being in the world struck me as just so beautiful. And I think that cyclical embodiment and that ritual dying to ourselves every month also connects us in a deeper way to our ancestors, the women, the lineage, the women who've gone before us, the women who've sat on the earth and bled, the women who've sistered each other and mothered each other through the cycles and rubbed oil on their feet and bellies, and it connects us to this great web of the collective unconscious of the feminine, I think, which I think is a very important part of the unseen shadow world. So
Yeah, I love that you're bringing this in because those of us who are threshold tenders, we know this space really well. And we
yeah,
also know, and I think that this is something that many people are waking up to, right? Is the disconnection between ourselves and nature, right? This
yes,
idea that we are separate from nature, this like not paying attention to the cycles of nature and knowing that we hold those same cycles. So when we think about what you just said of the cycle of the yoni itself, that's a beautiful, beautiful teaching. I love that. And at the same time, connecting us back to probably not our most recent ancestors, but the ancestors whose names we will never know, whose ways we have forgotten, right?
right.
So what I'm hearing you talk about is that these three pivots are actually bringing us back in touch to the old ways.
Yeah, beauty and into congruence with that, with the unseen. That's all that's gone before us, and with yes, those cycles, and also with recursion, with how the
Mm.
DNA just recurs. The collective unconscious is also the DNA, and nature itself is DNA, and it's constantly recursion is the nature. The information to repeat is contained
Mm-hmm.
inside, and I think it just gives us this, it's a portal to a deeper understanding, as you've said, of nature, of the nature of time, embodiment, and how the web of nature and those who've gone before us holds us in it in this kind of permeable way, uh, oscillating, fluctuating, fragmenting.
Yeah, I love this third love because, in this age of AI, in
Right.
this age of misinformation, in this age of being disconnected and our attention being, bought and sold, it's what you're teaching and what you're talking about is redirecting our attention to what is essential, to what is real, to what is true.
Right, and
And
to embodiment.
yeah, and so this teaching to me that is timely, its time is right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully. And then let me go back to the J-Stack because I interrupted
Yes.
my own self. So the J-Stack,
It's always good when you do that. You're excited about what you're teaching and what you're talking about.
yeah, the J-Stack is the victorious one, the one who has stepped into a deeper empowerment, the absorption. And I think, as we talked about a little bit before menopause, that stepping across that threshold and into a new phase. And you shared about your mom, and my mom was the same as well. She was like, "You have boundaries now."
Mhm.
Like I'm in a different stage of my empowerment and of embodying selfhood. And I think by the time we get to this threshold, I'm still kind of haven't fully crossed the line. But as women also, we've lived so much um, of our being and cycle that through our bodies. And I think many of us are so kind of somatic in how we interact with the world, that we're a mind body system. And you know, half the time our heart is out here, and, like we're moving through the world as this heart mind circuit that longs to be integrated. And I think a deeper integration is coming, or has come, for when the blood becomes absorbed and there's no longer the ritual dying monthly, but that is a giving to self and a deeper embodiment of selfhood. And from that deeper embodiment of selfhood, the pivot to the empowerment of being the teacher, of
Yes,
being the wise teacher, the wise embodier, and the gift, making your own life the gift to others.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. I love that.
yeah,
Now, I'm curious because I know you have this workshop that's coming up. It's a 6 week, basically a 6 week ritual, really, right? To honor all
yes.
of these pivots. I would love to talk about the importance of ritual in observing and honoring these phases of life.
Yeah, I think ritual is so important because it brings the unseen to the seen via ceremony. And in doing so, it's a consecration of our experience and a presencing of our experience. And one thing I really want to bring into this space is that this isn't just about menopause. This is
Right.
about claiming these three pivots for women's lives and women's embodiments, and that we can go back via ritual and via memory and reclaim
Yeah.
each stage and imbue it with a different understanding and indeed a different visceral imprint, that we get to change our narrative if we like. We get to, if it didn't feel like a celebration, to make it a celebration now. For example, menarche, the crossing the first threshold. And um, I think the midline, that midpoint of the Sumangali, is also the Suvasini, the sweetly auspicious one. You know, I'd be very vulnerable and say I always wanted to be a mother and I was never able to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, there's a big reclamation in that time. And I think for a lot of women, that's the case, or maybe they got pregnant more than they wanted to and had to live with the consequences of that, or had unwelcome pregnancies. And I think there's just such a vast area that we can bring into sacred space and hold in a sacred container and explore our embodied relationship to this via, I'll also be in every session, lead some very light movement, not even yoga poses, just moving our bodies to run energy through. I'll talk us through yoga nidra
Mm.
to,
Yes, we love
yeah,
your yoga nidras.
yeah, thank you, thank you. So that's some of my intention.
And how long is the course altogether?
6 weeks, and each session will be 2 hours. And one thing I also want to mention is I'm not going to record these sessions because
Mm-hmm.
we're stepping into a very intimate, vulnerable, fragile, tender space.
Tender,
And
yeah,
I feel it's
absolutely.
not appropriate to record them. So, and I'm hoping that that resonates with everybody.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Just to be able to hold the space and not have a leaky container, right?
Yeah, clear boundaries, deep listening. And I'd probably maybe do a WhatsApp group as well if anybody needs support outside of meeting or just wants to say hi. So that's my intention, and I'm excited about it.
Well, thank you so much for this offering. I think it's really important. And I think the two things that really stand out to me are really being able to go back and reclaim those moments
Yeah,
where there might have been pain, or there might have been, parents ignoring what was going on, or, other things that might have happened in midlife. Um, I think the power of ritual is something that is also something that we've forgotten, but I feel like since the pandemic, we've been moving in a direction where we maybe have learned that ritual will help us move through the spaces of uncertainty.
Yeah,
Um,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you, Dearbhla.
Thank you, Tracy.
I
Really.
look forward to seeing and hearing all more that's coming from you. I know you have some things coming up, right, in
Yeah.
Europe that you're going to be doing.
Yeah, retreat in Ireland.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So thank you.
Received. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you,
Tracy.
Derb.
Take care.
Okay.